VikesNow, I am Dustin Baker. We are on the February 6th edition. I'm again here on a solo trip. We had a scheduling kerfuffle. The group that was going to join us Tuesday will join us tomorrow to talk about the Senior Bowl and the Shrine Bowl. We also have Josh Fry in a separate episode with Jeff Diamond tomorrow, picking his brain about the Vikings offseason. Yes, that's the guy who drafted Randy Moss. He'll be on this show. But I want to talk about this new Vikings draft rumor. And you might have seen it, actually, if you Google Minnesota Vikings news or what have you, anything of the sort on Google, you'll see about 6 different articles about it. And it's this notion that the Vikings are willing to trade up on draft night for a quarterback. And that is not a dumb idea. The fact that it's out there in the stratosphere so prolific, this is not breaking news. Of course the Vikings are in the mix to possibly trade up for a quarterback. That's what this episode's going to be about, is talking about why the onslaught of this being breaking news is stupid. It's always been an option. It was an option like the moment that Kwesi Adoffa-Mensah and Kevin O'Connell rolled into town. So this kind of kickstarted behind ESPN's paywall. Jeremy Fowler published an article about the Senior Bowl and some of the behind-the-scenes stuff there, and I will quote, he said, "The Las Vegas Raiders at number 13 might be a team to watch." This is talking about trading up. New head coach Antonio Pierce is a big fan of Jaden Daniels from their days together at Arizona State. And word is that Pierce evaluated offensive coordinators with loose possibility of Jaden Daniels in mind. People around the league are keeping an eye on the Minnesota Vikings at number 11-2. And that's where I believe that quote was taken from, my website. I talked about it, VikingsTerritory.com, our sister site, Purple PTSD, and then about 12 others said, whoa, the Vikings might trade up. And this should not be a new principle to any Vikings fans, especially folks that watch this show. This has been my endorsement even last year when we thought CJ Stroud might tumble to 4 or 5. That was my draft endorsement last year, was to trade the farm for CJ Stroud. Now I'm on that same train. Tentatively, I got to see the combine and stuff for Drake May. Because, at some point, the Vikings have to plan for life after Kirk Cousins. So the Fowler tidbit started this little parade of, hey, the Vikings might trade up to get their quarterback of the future. Well, yeah, duh. Of course that's going to be on the table. You have a quarterback in Kirk Cousins who is going to be 36 when the regular season starts. And usually around that time, that's kind of when guys like Cousins, who are good but not great, start to diminish. There are several examples throughout NFL history, and in fact, even a lot younger than 36. You might recall Donovan McNabb when he was on the Vikings. That guy was washed by 32, 33. So I don't think that Cousins would arrive to 2024 regular season and be washed, but there's always that paranoia, that possibility, like Matt Ryan. It was very evident that he wasn't very effective at age 36, and a lot of time these pocket passers just start to lose it. And we have this example in our head of, hey, Brady played till 45, and I'm going to continue to preach on this show. That is legendary. It's unheard of that Brady would play that well until that age. The same for LeBron James in basketball. The guy never diminishes. Every year he shows up, I'm watching a Laker game, and I'm like, all right, this is going to be the season where he's not quite as good, and I'm going to be prepared for it. And then he's still that damn good. That doesn't happen to everybody just because it's happening in the modern era with those GOATs. So I'm a little paranoid that, the Vikings extend Cousins for 2 years and $90 million. And then we're chilling in October and we're like, oh, he's not the same guy. Well, of course, we knew that. He's going to be 36. So that's what I'm a little worried about. And then on top of that is the Achilles injury. This is not, a sprained toe that he's recovering from. Achilles injuries are pretty brutal to recover from, especially at age 35 going on to age 36. So when you employ a free agent to be on top of it all, Cousins will be a free agent if nothing else happens in 5 weeks. You add in that he's 36 and he's got a bad Achilles. Of course, trading up the board on draft night to get your blue chip quarterback prospect is an option. It's dumb that it became news this week. It should have been just a foregone conclusion from the moment that Cousins really got hurt against the Packers. Meanwhile, it's also time. The Vikings haven't used a first or second round draft pick on a quarterback since 2014. The last guy was Teddy Bridgewater, who started his career wonderfully in 2014 and then helped guide the Vikings in a wonderful defense to the 2015 postseason, NFC North title, Mike Zimmer's second year. But the Vikings are overdue to draft a quarterback. So when you pull up your favorite flavor of the day article that says report Vikings willing to trade up the board, they are damn overdue to do that. And they basically haven't, trying to scan my memory bank here, I don't know if they've ever really traded up the board in a splashy fashion for a quarterback. And I know that they haven't done it in the top 10 because the Vikings have never selected a quarterback with top 10 draft capital. If there was ever an indictment as to, why can't we get this quarterback thing right? Fran Tarkin retired 46 years ago. We had Dante Culpepper, great for 6 years. It might be because they don't invest top 10 draft capital in quarterbacks. They're always content finding a Ponder, signing a Cousins. What else have we done? Rolling with Warren Moon, going with Jeff George, Randall Cunningham. Always this reduced solution, thinking that you can squeeze the prime out of some veteran quarterback. So it's time. Way overdue. They haven't drafted a quarterback in round 1 or 2 in 10 years, and they've never drafted a quarterback in the top 10, period. Also, Kevin O'Connell and Kwesi Adofo-Mensah took this job 2 years ago. They both have 4-year contracts, I believe, and they're entering year 3. You would think at some point on their watch that they would want to expand their competitive rebuild horizons to include an heir apparent quarterback. Otherwise, you risk saying, we're attaching our job security to Kirk Cousins. And Cousins could he could show up and play wonderfully in September for the Vikings, the Falcons, or the Steelers. But I don't know that these two young, hip dudes want to rest on their laurels and keep re-upping with Cousins when, the clock could be ticking. If they roll with Cousins and do not draft a quarterback this draft and just say, hey, we got Kirk Cousins, Nick Mullins, and Jaron Hall, boom, finish 7-10 again, or 6-11, or even 8-9, and Cousins is the quarterback the whole time, that Kevin O'Connell's hot seat would, get warm. There's no doubt about it. So I that's only, like a doomsday scenario. I don't think O'Connell's on a hot seat whatsoever right now. But if they did nothing and just said, we're going with Kirk again, that's how this works, that's our strategy, I would be paranoid for their sake about their job security. When you have a competitive rebuild or any rebuild whatsoever, usually that starts at the top of the depth chart with the quarterback, and therefore I do believe they will identify their guy and draft him this time. Also, last year, I believe it was right after the draft, there was reporting that suggested the Vikings were interested, if they were going to be interested at all in trading up the board, like this new fancy theory says, they were going to do it for Bryce Young. Well, Bryce Young went first overall, and I think they held that belief that, hey, we'll trade up and get it if it's Bryce Young. If he was the guy that fell to 3, 4, 5, or 6. Ultimately, he did not. The Panthers went with him. And then on top of that little rumor, I think it would have come out about 2 weeks ago that the Vikings were supremely interested in Anthony Richardson and kicked the tires on him, or willing to trade, multiple draft assets to get him. So it's already out there that the Vikings allegedly were willing to do this. When you arrive to February on your calendar right now and you have 18 websites telling you, boom, the Vikings are willing to trade up, you should just smirk and say, well, yeah, I already knew that. The fact that it's a new draft rumor is pretty stupid. Like, it was always going to be in play. I firmly believe that the path, I think this might be a disagreeable point of contention, but I think that the Vikings roster is poised for a rookie quarterback. Whether they love J.J. McCarthy or they love Jaden Daniels, I know there's some paranoia about the defensive personnel, and I do think that they will enhance that in free agency. But you have Justin Jefferson, T.J. Hawkinson should be back by, October or so of next year. And then you have Christian Darrisaw, and you have a former quarterback as the head coach. The offense is willing to have some guy dropped into it, like Jaden Daniels or Drake May, and say, go forth. You should succeed, assuming that they get their, run game poop in a group. I believe this team is tailor-made for a rookie quarterback, even if you want to let it rip week 1. And then Brian Flores is staying on defense. He showed that in 1 year he could take the NFL's 9th worst defense per DVOA and improve it to the 11th best. So you take Flores' defensive tutelage, Kevin O'Connell's former quarterback profile. If anybody can develop a quarterback, it should be O'Connell. And then, by the way, Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson, Christian Darrisaw. It is my opinion that whoever they identify, if they do, in round one as their quarterback of the future, go ahead and start the guy week one. We know that the ceiling for that season probably going to be another 7-10, but it'll be an exciting 7-10 because you have a rookie quarterback maturing on the fly. So the overall takeaway on this episode is this. Of course, the Vikings are willing to trade up the draft board. Why would they not be? They have an old quarterback who's got a bad Achilles. They haven't drafted a quarterback since 2014 in round one, and they've never used top 10 draft capital on a quarterback ever. You have a general manager and a head coach who are in a rebuild, their version of it, and you would think in a rebuild they're going to draft a quarterback. So all of this should, compile to say yes. The Vikings trading up on draft night to get a quarterback should be expected, not be some big, February surprise. All right, we'll be back tomorrow with 2 episodes. One will feature more Senior Bowl and Shrine Bowl stuff. And then separately, Josh Fry and I will pick Jeff Diamond, former Vikings general manager, his brain about the ownership's role, how much input do owners have in all of this outside of Jerry Jones, a normal NFL owner. And we'll ask him about some of his cousins' predictions and the like. Skol, baby.